Okay. Watching live or watching our video recording. My name is Tyra Smith. I'm Indigenous breastfeeding counselor and a newly trained birth doula as well. I am a mama and wear many other hats, but I'm excited to be here today and talk about Hanai Vayu, which is breastfeeding. So we can get started. Like I said, my name is Tyra. I am an Indigenous breastfeeding counselor. So this is a training that we did back in 2019 that was hosted by this Indigenous breastfeeding counselor training actually came from some of our Indigenous sisters on the continent, and they developed this training for Indigenous breastfeeding, lactation support, and it was just a really good training that centered myself getting newly into the field of maternal child health, breastfeeding, and all of that. I didn't know where to. I started at the top trying to get my IBCLC and do all this kind of stuff, and I just really didn't know much about so getting the Indigenous breastfeeding counselor training and doing that and having that experience really has helped me find my foundation and ground myself in my traditions as a Native Hawaiian in order to then move forward and serve the community as best that I can. I am also a part of the Hawaii Indigenous Breastfeeding Collaborative. So I'm a co-founder of this group with my other Hoa, Amber. And if anybody wants to go to our Instagram or Facebook page, we did host the first ever OEB Breastfeeding Week back in August of 2021 was the first year that we were hosting this during Native Breastfeeding Week. So August is breastfeeding month, and each week has like a different theme. And so we put on a whole bunch of different webinars and had a lot of great experiences with different individuals in the community who are Native Hawaiian, Indigenous, and sharing their mo'olelo, their stories. I'm also the board secretary of Breastfeeding Hawaii. That is another new role that I play, trying to advocate for breastfeeding support, as well as other related things related to breastfeeding for families in Hawaii. So paid family leave, all of those things are things that we try to advocate for within the legislature. Families of Hawaii are supported during breastfeeding. And then Nest for Families is another nonprofit organization that I work for as a peer family support educator. We provide free text message and virtual support throughout the state of Hawaii to families within the first 1,000 days of life, so 2 years. And if anybody needs, I can share the link for enrollment. It's a free service that we provide, sending developmental text messages and information about, stages that your baby's in. And it's also two-way. So families text back to us and, ask questions like, oh, if I'm breastfeeding, this doesn't feel right. And so we actually have, like myself and as well as lactation consultants respond back and help in the best way that we can. And then if it's not able to be helped virtually, then we can also do referrals and things like that too. So on top, yes, those are all the things that I do. And like I said, I'm a new, just trained as a birth doula because I've just seen the strong interconnected relationship between birth and breastfeeding. And I really see that when families are supported and educated and empowered during their birth and, prepare early in during their pregnancy, that their breastfeeding journeys are improved and feel more supported and educated and informed. So that's kind of my intention of doing that and becoming a birth worker as well as a lactation care provider. So I know there's only two of you. We are recording, so there's no need to unmute, but if you want to, I'd love to know a little bit about my audience. So you can use the chat box and share a little about yourself, who you are, where you come from, you know, what your role is in life right now, and anything you'd like to share with me. I love to hear stories. So mahalo for joining. So I always like to start off with Olelo No'eo, and Olelo No'eo are Hawaiian proverbs or like sayings of our Ike Kupuna, so knowledge of our ancestors. And these are sayings that really ground us in the way that we move forward in life, the way that we serve ourselves, our ohana, and the community. So this is one of my favorite Olelo No'eo Poli'ai. So Poli'ai is also another Hawaiian term for breastfeeding. And it says, Yolo no ke kinoi kama'o na ka opu. The body enjoys health when the stomach is well filled. And so that is related to Poli'ai because breastfeeding and breast milk is really filling your keiki and your child with all the nutrients that they need. It's just so amazing that our bodies develop this fluid, this like powerful milk that sustain a child for the first 6 months, you know, and beyond. I have a daughter who's almost 2 who still loves my Bayou. And, you know, so that's always something that's amazing to me, that we are able to create this milk and have the power to do that for our families and to feed future generations. And so this is one Olelo No'eo Poli'ai that I really draw strongly to. Oh, and that's my daughter there too, that's getting all her mama milk. So breastfeeding, where do I begin, and preparing for your breastfeeding journey? So some of you may have already begun. Some of you might just be starting, but breastfeeding can really start during pregnancy. When you're hapai and you're getting ready and preparing for your child, there's so many things that you think about for pregnancy and birth. But sometimes with breastfeeding, it's like, okay, the baby's here, what are we gonna do? You know, so preparing yourself, taking a breastfeeding class, doing something like this where you watch webinars and just really get yourself during pregnancy, like in your feels. That's like, I think maybe 2 weeks before I gave birth, I watched so many webinars. I just like loved watching breastfeeding videos. I myself have been around breastfeeding before I breastfed because my mom, my sisters, like they all breastfed. So I kind of saw from example of but I knew that my breastfeeding journey was going to be a little different and look a little different. So I just tried to find different ways to do that. And I can really begin from the beginning of your pregnancy. So during pregnancy, there's so many different things that affect your milk supply, the way that we see if we are making sure that we have a well-balanced diet, if we have physical activity. Those are things that can benefit breastfeeding because your body is well trained and ready to be in that state of providing nutrients for another human being. And so when during pregnancy, we develop the good habits of, you know, balanced eating and thinking and being really mindful about what we put into our bodies and what we do with our bodies, that habit is going to portray into our motherhoods after we give birth and while we're breastfeeding. So I like to use the word physical activity and not so much exercise, because I just to share a little bit, like when I first gave birth, I was a little discouraged because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no energy to, like, sometimes you just want to like go running or something. And just my body was like totally not wanting that. And at first I'm like, oh, but I have to exercise, right? Like you have to exercise to fill your body and to have all these good, to recover from birth and everything like that. But honestly, when my doctor cleared me at 6 weeks, I was like, could barely even go up my stairs sometimes, and your body is so tired, but I kept feeling this need to like exercise. And then I read more about physical activity. And I actually went back into some of the Hawaiian traditions, and actually physical activity and exercise and ho'ikaika kino is the word for exercise in Hawaiian. But there's so many different ways you can do that. And so what I started doing, I've danced hula for like my whole life. And so I went back to dancing hula. It's not like exercise, but my body is moving in the right ways that I know that it's strong. I went out, we went to the beach, doing all of those things, that's physical activity. At my house, I didn't have like a yard or anything, but I would come to my parents' house and we would get outside and get in the yard. And that's really good physical activity during pregnancy and also postpartum when you feel like it. And it's always really good to listen to your body. If you feel like you're doing too much or too little bit or anything like that, if you're tired, it's okay. Sometimes you feel that need to like bounce back really quickly, and some bodies do, and it's amazing. But some bodies take a little longer, and that's totally fine, because the way that our bodies develop, the way that our bodies change during pregnancy and postpartum is amazing in general. And it's beautiful that every journey, every stage is different, and it's your own. And so I always try to remind families and mommies of that, because sometimes, there's like that comparison between others and yourself, and just really looking at what your body did and the things that it's produced, a baby, breast milk, and all of these amazing things. So taking care of your body in that way, and showing mahalo for your body as well. So by doing that, we can also make sure that we take our vitamins and supplements, and making sure that we're getting what our body needs. A lot of times, if you have a really balanced diet and you have a diet that's really high in nutrients and density, all of these extra vitamins and supplements and extra things are not always needed. So it's, like I said, it's always good to listen to your body. Harvesting colostrum is where you can, maybe about 37, 38 weeks, you can start to breast massage and do all those things. And sometimes milk actually comes out. And so it's safe to collect that milk and give it to your baby during birth, after birth, if you want to bring it to the hospital. And then resting. Resting is really important, because your body during birth goes through this like really, really long birth, and you're exerting a lot of energy. And so resting before pregnancy, before birth, can help you, your body to have the nutrients and like the energy it needs to birth your baby. And then right after, start breastfeeding. And so when you've prepared your body in that way close to birth, that it can help your breastfeeding journey. And so this is just colostrum. And so colostrum milk that is produced. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to do that. Yes, so the colostrum is the first milk that your body produces. It's the most dense in antibodies, in nutrients, and that first protection that your baby needs after birth. And so it's a thicker type of milk, and it's not as easy to come out like with a pump. This picture that I'm showing is actually, I pumped this postpartum, but you can see that the milk is really yellow. And that's colostrum. That's like within the early days. So this is marked 4:30. So this is 2 days postpartum for me. And at that time, I was just really engorged. My milk had matured. So when your milk goes from like that really thick substance to like a little bit more flowy, it's just like ready to come out. And so I actually hand expressed in the hospital and was able to get a lot of milk out for my baby. And I just finger fed her. And so this was really helpful as well, because it allowed me to make sure that if she wasn't getting the milk during like at the breast, that I would give it to her in a syringe or a spoon. And this was happening in the hospital. And so the doctors were like, oh, if she's not pooping as much before she leaves, she needs to supplement. And at first I was like, I don't need to supplement, like I think my baby's okay. But if that word supplementation like kind of scares you, you can supplement with your own breast milk. And so I was like, is it okay if I just express my milk and give that? And they're like, oh, that's fine. But sometimes if you need to give formula, it's okay. But for myself, I knew that I wanted to give her my breast milk. So I was able to hand express, get it into the syringes, like here in the picture, and then give it to her in the hospital. And it made the doctors feel more, I guess, at ease, because my daughter wasn't pooping right away and all this kind of, all of that hospital kind of protocol. So I let that slide, but I was happy to be able to have colostrum available for her, especially when she was like extra hungry or anything like that. I could just pull it out, warm up the syringe a little bit. And it also helped my husband play a role in breastfeeding as well. He learned how to finger feed and do all of that. So it really also empowered him and made him feel like he could play a role in the early stages of providing milk to our daughter. So just a little bit about your Vayu. So Vayu is milk. And this is a great visual here from Kalau Kikahuli, so Mahalo Nui. They're also out in Maui. And they made this visual of the size of your baby's opu. And this is a really, really important thing to remember in the early stages, because sometimes you see you think that sometimes you're supposed to have all this milk, right? Like your baby needs to have all this milk. But in the early stages, our baby's tummies are so small. And that's because they're still developing, they're still growing. And so in day 1 and 2, you can see that the akala berry is very small. And here in this picture, you can see that that's just the amount of milk that you need, right? And if you also think about how much a baby pees and poops, that's because their stomach is only able to hold a certain amount of nutrients before it's, before they go shishi. And so when they have this constant wet diapers or soiled diapers or dirty diapers, it's emptying their tummy again over and over and over again. So sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I'm feeding, like this baby's hungry all the time, because they are, their bellies are so small, their stomachs are so small that every time they use the bathroom, it's up open again, it's empty again. And so this is really important to remember, especially because of building your milk supply. And so a lot of times you'll see this increase in your milk supply by day 6. And you notice in this picture that the milk is still really yellow. It's really dense in nutrients and everything that your baby needs within that first week to kickstart their immune system, to make sure that they're clearing out their gut and really creating a very healthy layer of microbiome within their intestines. And all of this good stuff is lining their stomach when you're giving them this breast milk within the first week. And so you can see here on day 25 that the milk looks different, but this is what the baby needs. And so if you're breastfeeding, like to the breast, this is just helpful in visualizing like how long or how much your baby needs. If you're bottle feeding, then this is a really good visualization. But if you're breastfeeding to the breast, it's always important to look at how the baby feels. So after feeding, if baby is nice and relaxed and their fists are open and they're just kind of calm and like milk drunk babies at the breast, like just kind of resting on your vayu, that's a good sign, right? Your baby is satisfied, looking and feeling good. And then looking at the diapers. So supply and demand is something that's also very important with breastfeeding. Breastfeeding on demand, again, especially in the early stages, will help to maintain your milk supply. It'll help you to make sure that your body is producing the amount of milk that your baby needs. So sometimes if babies feel a little bit more tired at the breast, mamas pump after because babies actually maybe want a little bit more. And so always making sure that even if baby doesn't take all the milk out, if you still feel like your vayu or your breasts are sore or not fully emptied, and just one note that your breast can never be fully emptied. It just is more of like that softness that you'll feel. Then it'll help to produce more milk. But there's always a little bit of milk in there. It's just that it's just a cycle. Your baby feeds, you release your milk, there's more coming in right after that. So it's just this ongoing cycle. And so just making sure that if you need to, hand expressing or pumping a little bit after your baby feeds is okay. But again, every breastfeeding journey looks different. So sometimes moms can breastfeed to the breast and not have to pump at all for the first few weeks. And some moms have to pump, and that's beautiful too. Some moms around 3 weeks prepare for going back to work and doing things like that. And so you have to create a milk storage for your baby. And so there's different ways that you can do that as well. So who plays a role in breastfeeding? So your ipo, I put kuipo as like my ipo, but it can be your ipo as well. Your partner, your significant other, they do play a role. And that's because the things that they can do to support you is really important. You want to make sure that your partner is also informed and prepared and as educated as they feel open to breastfeeding in order to support you. And so if there's a time where, you can provide the space and opportunity for them to ask questions to someone else, or like, I used to just kind of drop hints to my husband and like share little links like, hey, isn't this cool about breastfeeding, or like a video or something, and he'd watch it, and there's different handouts that can kind of show your partner or your significant other how they can support you. So surrounding you with love. Ipo is that word for love, but not only just like physical love, but just like that surrounding environment, like that feeling of just like warming your heart type of love. And that's kind of very important in the early stages, postpartum, breastfeeding, tired, exhausted, sleep deprived, all of those things. Your partner can help by, massaging if that's what you want, giving your space if that's what you need, asking, oh, babe, you need water, you need this, making sure that there's food, that there's, my husband loved to burp our daughters. So like giving them the opportunity to burp. I'm going to be really honest. The first like couple weeks, it was really hard for even me to just give my baby to him. I kept saying like, that's my baby, but it's our baby, you know? So I had to like kind of release her a little bit and allow him to learn how to be a father too, because he, first time, we're first time parents. And so he was learning as much as I was. And so I had to acknowledge that. It took me a while to release the fog of like sleep deprivation and everything like that. More people are joining. That's exciting. And then, so who also plays a role in breastfeeding is your ohana. Love, support, healing, and mea'ai. My family are cooks. I absolutely love it because I cook, but it's not my favorite foods. Like my favorite foods is something that my grandma cooks and my mom cooks. And so your ohana can actually help and serve in that way where they're providing foods, checking in on you and saying, are you okay today? Especially now when you're giving birth during a pandemic, you feel isolated in a way where like you shouldn't ask because you don't want people to like come physically, right? But there's so many other things that they can do to support you. Just sending a text message or saying that they love you and that they support you, or a phone call. Like my sister would call me every day and just check in on me. And that was just like, okay, those days that you're by yourself and, your partner or whoever goes back to work and you're left by yourself with this baby, you're like, oh my gosh, I made this, but I don't know how to work it. I don't know how to do what, like, I don't know how, right? It's this new thing. And so your ohana can be there and, share the knowledge that they know. Sometimes if they share their experiences, it's not as helpful, but, just knowing that other people have gone through it too kind of helps. And so hoa, as your friends, my friends were actually a little bit more helpful in the way of like feeling like it was okay. They listened, finding those people that listen and respond with aloha and are genuine. Those are the people you want to keep in your circle for sure. Or your triangle or whatever, whatever the shape of your friends and your family is. It's beautiful, but it's for you, and it's to make sure that you have yourself surrounded by people who are going to give you positive energy and positive vibes, especially during this time of breastfeeding, because whatever is in your environment, that's coming into your body and then being expressed through your milk. And so you want to make sure that if you're breastfeeding and your body is making milk, that you want to give good energy and good mana and power to your baby. And so trying your best to surround yourself with feelings and people that show aloha so that you're giving that mana aloha to your baby. And then, so kaya ulu is community. Community plays a huge role. There's so many different things, resources and support in the community that can provide support, help to you and your family during your breastfeeding journey. I did share in the beginning of some of the organizations that I am involved in, but there's so many others. And if you have any questions about them, I am happy to share with you. Like Pacific Birth Collective, they have a great online directory where there's individuals that are on each island and have a resource there and a directory to show you different people that you can reach out to for support. And then Kalahui o Hawaii. As Native Hawaiians, whether you are a part of that community or a part of the lahui or not, the energy that is made within a lahui spreads throughout the islands. When our lahui is empowered and healthy and strong, it allows our earth and our aina to grow. And then, anybody else who also share the community with us is able to feel that energy. And so supporting and empowering each other to make sure that our people who are of this land are taken care of, so that the land is taken care of, and so that others who are also on the land can feel that mana as well. And so that's playing a role, because you want to make sure that the aina is safe and healthy, and so that any foods that you eat from the aina is coming into you and then going into your breast milk and serving your baby, right? So when you eat healthy foods, if you like, I really love poi. I've loved poi my whole life. And so when you eat poi, that's in the ground. That kalo grows deep within the ground. All of that soil and energy that's put in to make that poi comes from the lahui, right? Comes from the aina. And so just kind of remembering things in that way. And then last, but very most important, is o'oi for you and for yourself. It's really, really hard to take care of yourself when you're so like, have this little tiny human that is relying on you so much. And I have found that finding the littlest things that make me feel like, I can breathe, that's taking care of yourself. And it kind of grows. And you think about that I have to serve myself in order to serve my baby, and to serve my family, and to serve the community whenever you're ready to get back into work, or, being around others, and really making sure that you can channel your feelings, your na'au, your pu'uwai. One of my professors at school call it, say to check on your pink, and your pink is your pu'uwai, which is your heart, your ike, which is your mind, your na'au, which is like your gut, like that gut feeling kind of foundation, and your kino, which is your body, so your pink. And that's one saying that I have really just checked on my pink every once in a while, like thinking about what's going on in my heart, thinking about what's going on in my mind, in my na'au, and my body. So this is a picture from our first ever breastfeeding, OEV breastfeeding week. And I just totally loved this experience. And it just shows the unique beauty between mothers, babies, breastfeeding, and just life in general. Every journey is unique. Every journey is beautiful. In this picture, we have some babies that are, newborn stage, or a couple months old. We have my daughter and my our angel here, Kami Kanoa Wong. This is one of the last interactions that I had with her during her time on Earth. She is now showing her mana towards us in the heavens, but yes, this is just something so beautiful. Our children are about 9 months apart. So we have our toddlers breastfeeding, we have our babies breastfeeding, we have our mamas of all different shapes and sizes, and it's just so beautiful to show that this is breastfeeding. This is mamahood in any way that you can, and it's just beautiful. And apologies on my emotions. Every time I see this photo, it just kind of gets me a little bit. And so moving forward and thinking about breastfeeding and the act of breastfeeding, it should not hurt. And a lot of times, moms hear like, oh, just, it's going to hurt a little bit, but it'll go away, or your body will get used to it. You just got to toughen up a little bit. That is not really the best support and advice that you can hear. Breastfeeding in the early stages, you're learning and your baby's learning. You're learning how to breastfeed. Your baby's learning how to eat in general, because in the womb, your baby gets everything directly from your piko, right? From your ieve, which is the placenta. And they're like, they kind of suck their thumbs sometimes, but they don't know how to use their mouth in that way where they're drawing out milk. And so this is all new, right? And in the early stages, sometimes it's going to hurt. But when it's like a hurt that you cannot solve or fix or make better, seeking support is really important. Excuse me, I'm just gonna get water. Okay, so seeking support, yes, is really, really important when experiencing persistent pain while nursing. Sometimes we feel like, okay, I should know, this is natural. This is like something that all moms do. Like, I should know how to do this. And really, you don't know until your baby comes out. You see the type of baby you have. You see that the baby is also trying to figure out what type of breast you have, right? Like, all of our breasts are beautiful, but they're all different. Some are big, some are small, some nipples are larger and smaller, some have areolas, some have really small ones. Like, and so babies have to figure that out, and so trying different positions, trying different things. Sometimes you don't know how to do that until somebody helps you and supports you through that. And so there's different ways that you can do that by reaching out to a lactation consultant or a lactation provider. There's the one thing that the COVID-19, pandemic has brought is support at your fingertips. There's platforms like Zoom, there's FaceTime, there's texting, and there's ways that you can get support within your home very safely. And so seeking support is always needed. And at the end of the slide, these slides here, I do have my contact information. I am super happy to refer, to help, or to do anything that families need in this time and experiencing this. There's different reasons that mothers experience pain during breastfeeding, and every solution is different. Sometimes moms, out of the kindness of their heart, will share their story like, oh, it was sore, but then all I did was just do this and it was gone. And other moms like, that didn't work for me, like that, so acknowledging that it worked for one mom, but it doesn't work for everybody. And so finding somebody that will help you find your need and support is also really beneficial. And so I just wanted to share a little bit because the way that our Hawaiian language will be sustained and used is to introduce the language. So I just wanted to share a little bit of Hawaiian terms in regards to breastfeeding. And so my hoa angel, Cami, during OEV breastfeeding week, she was this like extraordinaire of just Ike Hawaii in general. Like, she was so passionate about looking back at newspapers and everything to find these different words and terminology and things that empowered us because of our kupuna. And so poli'ai, so hua'olelo is word, and poli'ai is breastfeeding. So breastfeeding words is this hua'olelo poli'ai. And so poli'ai is to nurse at the breast or a nursing breast. The difference between hanai vayu and poli'ai is hanai vayu is to hanai is to like lift up or to carry, and then vayu is milk, right? So like to lift to the breast, and that's like that physical kind of like, I'm gonna breastfeed. But poly is this area you can see in this picture, like Pua, she has her poly open here. And so the poly is the area, the bosom, where you just kind of hold your babies, and when they're most comfortable, it's just that really like nurturing feeling, poly. And then vayu kahe, so kahe is flowing. So the flowing breast milk, when you're having that let down and all your good mana and all your good vayu is coming out and allowing your baby to get the nutrients that they need, is that vayu kahe. And then ma'ona is that satisfied, like I told you, like I said earlier, that milk drunk feeling, right? That ma'ona ka'opu, where baby has all the milk and is intoxicated, milk drunk, satisfied feeling after getting that vayu kahe. And then vayu olo olo is a funny term because as much as breastfeeding is beautiful, as the months and the years for some of us go on, your vayu get saggy. So sagging breasts, vayu olo olo. And that just shows, the changes that our body makes and how beautiful it is that our body goes from plump and all of this stuff, and then you make this milk and it goes away, but sometimes it comes back because you have multiple kids. And so it's this back and forth reciprocal thing, but acknowledging it, laughing about it, loving it, just makes it a little bit better. So that is the end for myself. I wanted to open up, and I did make it within the last 15 minutes for anybody to ask any questions, share their story if you want. We can stop sharing. We can stop doing the recording